Welcome, welcome everybody. We are here today to talk about business plans, and I am so excited. We have Carmela from the Small Business Center, and she is going to tell you guys about all of the amazing programming and everything they got going on. So Carmela, you want to say hi to everybody and kick us off?
Yes, thank you, Roxanne. Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to today's webinar, How to Write a Business Plan. And as Roxanne mentioned, I'm Carmela Tomlinson. I'm the director of the Small Business Center for Caldwell Community College and Technical Institute. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with the Small Business Center network, the good news is we are a free resource to help small businesses get up and started and to grow and to be successful. We offer one-on-one counseling as well as training like today's webinar. So there are 58 small business centers in the state of North Carolina, and we're all affiliated with the community colleges. So I would encourage you, if you would like to have one-on-one counseling, to reach out to your community college in your area. There will be a small business center there, and there should be a director that will meet with you one-on-one. It's free, it's confidential. These directors are experts in their fields. Most of them are like me. They have even owned their own business. So it's a great resource to take advantage of. And then I put my contact information in the chat box, and I've also put a couple upcoming webinars that is a continuation of this series. Next Wednesday, we have Financing Your Small Business. The one after that is Understanding Your Market and Your Customers. And then our last one is Beyond the Business Plan. So those dates and times are there, as well as the links to register for any of those that you feel like is a good fit for you. And I just want to thank Roxanne Reed, who is with the Granite Training Group. And she's awesome. And she's such a big supporter of the Small Business Center Network and offers great insight and expertise. And you will see that today. And just want to thank you, Roxanne, for being with us today and doing the seminar.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you. And that's one of the things that's important, that no matter where you are, some of you are here in North Carolina and some of you are outside of North Carolina. Every state has an SBDC. So they are all over the country. So the small business centers, they're everywhere. So make sure that you utilize that resource, because we can teach you all day long, but a lot of times it's hard to kind of absorb everything, or you're like, what's the best approach? And so your small business centers are the best. And they always are the ones who have usually the top of mind information on lending for startups and businesses in the climb. And that kind of opens me up into the segue of why in the world is a business plan important? One of the reasons for that is it essentially helps you put everything on paper that needs to be analyzed. Now, some of you have met me in the past. Some of you are here for the first time with me. I am a financial strategist who became a business advisor, and I've been an entrepreneur pretty much since I can remember. I started my first business at 21. I'm 49. So trust me, I got lots of t-shirts, lots of bumps and bruises, but you learn that way. That's the best approach. So over the years, I kind of found this secret sauce on how to help startups and businesses in their first 3 years, or when they're pivoting. You might have been in business for 7 years, 10 years, but because of COVID, because of change in ownership, something, you're looking to pivot your business. That's typically where I spend most of my time. And it's really about building a plan with a purpose. A lot of times everybody says, oh, go build a business plan. Well, it's like, well, I usually think I'll build a business plan when I think I need lending. Well, no, business plan is really strategy. So you should be updating your strategy every year. And you can think of a business plan really fundamentally in 2 ways. One is the written document. But what we're really going to focus on today, and you're kind of like, no way, Roxanne, how did I end up in a business plan / are we going to talk some numbers? And I'm like, yeah, because that's where you start. So I'm going to talk about the high levels, the reason why opening that curtain, that Wizard of Oz curtain, and it's like, what do lenders think? If you know how lenders think, I'm an analyst, right? I know what I'm looking for. And what's most important is I want to make sure you know what they're looking for, because otherwise you could be spinning your wheels, spending so much time on things that technically don't really matter that much. So I'm going to zero you in on the key things that you're going to be held to, or the standards that you're going to be looked at. Before we get started, I want you to understand how lending works. In most states, I know definitely here in North Carolina, you need funding in North Carolina, I'm your girl. I can definitely make sure you're put in the right hands to match the DNA of your business and your needs. If you're outside of North Carolina, I can still help, but I specialize mostly in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Florida. But here's how most lending, no matter what, works in just about every state. You have your behemoth banks, right? You have your big boys and girls, your big Wall Street banks. You got your Wells Fargo, you got Citi, you got all those big boys and girls. That's your A team, right? Next is your B team. Your B team are more of your regional banks. So regional banks are going to be more like your BB&Ts or First Citizen. Some of those that you might, you can always tell when you're working with a regional bank, you're like, oh boy, I'm with BB&T. I can't go past this state line, or I'm not going to have access to be able to walk into a bank. That's a regional bank. So that's your B team. And then your C team is your CDFIs, community development financial institutions, and nonprofit lenders. And guess who is your best friend as a startup or a business in the climb or a business that's pivoting? It's the C team. They're going to what they do is they get funds from the state, federal, and guess who? The A team and the B team. They send funds down because they want to help startups, but they don't necessarily want us in their portfolio. So they have a collaborative plan to provide funding to these community development financial institutions and nonprofit lenders. We have a minimum of 10 here in North Carolina at any one given time, and they're awesome. But every state has them. And their job is to do what? Can you imagine? Help startups, because startups hire, they purchase inventory, they pay taxes, which everyone loves that, right? So if you understand what lender is a best fit for you, then you can kind of pivot your mind onto understanding how that lender is going to think of you. Now, here's some other advantages to this lending group. So, and I say Team C, everybody's like, oh man, well, maybe they're not so great. No, Team C is your champions. These lenders are your champions, but that's how they stack up in the pyramid of lending. And it's important that you understand how it works, because how many of you may have walked in and gone into a bank where you have great credit, you have a great relationship, you're like, oh, this is my bank, they love me. Hey, George, hey, Sally, everybody's high five. Everybody loves to take your deposits, you got your checking account there, everything's golden, right? You go get a small business loan and they're like, oh, sorry, you didn't qualify. You know why? Because they don't do startups, most of them. That's not in their charter. They don't want that in their portfolio. It's too high risk. So what they do is a lot of them will pivot and say, oh, why don't you go talk to this lender? Let me make a referral. If they know about them, you would be amazed. Trust me, I've been doing this for 25 years. Amazed at how many traditional banks and lenders don't even know about the champions team, Team C, right? So that's one of my biggest things that I'm always getting everybody to understand. Let's get in the mode of who are our lenders. And then I'm going to teach you today, these are the key things they're looking for and why they're looking for them, so that oh man, I got some dirty laundry over here, I got to clean this up, or I need to go and repackage this over here because Roxanne told me if I don't do this, it's probably going to red flag. And a red flag is what we want to avoid. My job is to help you where you walk in and you're like, here's my business plan, and it's beautiful and it's vetted, and the small business center's there to back you up. Make sure somebody else is looking at your stuff. And then you're going to have much more success having champions, working with champion banks and lenders. So what is a business plan? In high level, it's a narrative. Who you are, what you're doing, why does anybody care what you're doing, how you're going to make money. Yeah, you heard me right. You better be showing how you can make some money. We're going to talk about that today. Otherwise, you're a hobby. It's okay if we start as a hobby. Most of us do, but then we're going to build in to becoming a viable business with net profitability. Now, business plan is going to talk about our unique products and services. It's going to talk about what our goals are. It's also going to help us to understand some red flags, some things that might say, you know what, maybe my business plan is a little too aggressive because I don't quite know if I have all the equipment to handle, you know, some of these larger contracts. But it's also going to identify how much capital you need. But here's the thing too that's really important. Keep it freaking simple, okay? One of the things that's important is you want to make sure that you can give that business plan summary or narrative to anyone and they're going to understand it. And we'll explain that a little bit later. So traditional business plan, I would not be a proper business advisor if I did not give you the traditional terminology that you will see in most traditional business plans. But I'm going to share with you guys my 7 questions that I use to back up the narrative, and pretty much 95% of the startups I work with, that's how we roll. That's actually the business plan narrative that we work off of with some fabulous numbers, right? Okay, so you're going to have executive summary, description of your business. You're going to talk about what your company does, why it's important, what the opportunities are, what the needs are, and you know what those opportunities may or may not be for you to take advantage of, right? So we just need a basic general description, a description of your management team. Let's stop here for a second. This is really, really, really critical. A lender is investing in you. They're investing in you. They're putting their trust in you. They're rolling with what you have going on. Do not roll over this information. You need to provide a full resume, a resume that pertains to transferring your skills from what you may have been doing into how it's going to impact the business. I don't care if you have a business degree. That is irrelevant. Some of the smartest business owners I know do not have a formal business degree, but what they have done is they've gone to a lot of the small business centers, and they've gone to a lot of your local support teams for help. And it's because you can take classes like this and school yourself up quick. Because if I just gave you a book on how to write a business plan, yeah, you could bang out a business plan, right? It's like writing a thesis. But do you know why you're writing the business plan? Do you know what parts of it a lender's even going to care about? Do you know how to kind of stack the deck in your favor for a presentation to a lender? Those are the things that you just can't pull out of a narrative. You have to talk to a human who's been through this. So make sure, management team, your resume, any of your pertinent any of your pertinent employees. If you have a CPA or an accountant, put their information in there too. It's this team look that they're going after. As a lender, put on my analysis hat, when I see that somebody has a CPA or accountant on their team, I'm like, oh, thank goodness, this is great. Because I know that they're already planning for that process to be fiscally responsible. Your marketing plan is mostly about where your customers are, who you think they are. But as an example, let's say that you are going to anchor your food truck in downtown. You're like, you know what? I think this would be a great spot. So I'm going to go on Google Maps. I'm going to put an anchor there, and then I'm going to say, this is my working circumference. Show them these maps and tell them why. So in the morning, I can hit those that are going to work. At lunchtime, I'm going to pop over here to one of the largest, bank buildings in town. There's no other food trucks around, and there's no really quick access to getting to a restaurant where you can get in and out. And then maybe at night, I'm going to go over here to the downtown nightlife area and take care of, young professionals that are coming out after cocktail hour. Whatever it is, speak to it in those terms and you'll get a lot farther, because you got to think, lenders don't know really what you're doing. We sit there and we say, oh, I'm going to do a food truck. Well, we all, for the most part, know what a food truck is. but what's different about your food truck? What's your plan for that food truck? How is it going to come together? So those are the things that you want to put out there in your marketing plan. Now, human resources, for the most part, you are not going to be hiring a lot of people. If you already have some employees, then you are going to add in what your human resources plan is as far as new hires, new involvement, expansion. One of the things that the Champions team of lenders that they absolutely love is when you're hiring, because they look good giving you money to hire new people as well. And then the financial planning, which of course is going to be the projections. We're going to talk about those. And then the appendices to boost your credibility. What that is if you've been written up in the newspaper, if you've got a huge Facebook following, if you've had somebody, a lot of customers give you great shout outs, put all of that into your business plan. Think of a business plan as simply a pitch deck. You want to wow them from the start. Nobody wants a boring old business plan that's just, paper, with black and white text on it. Add a cover page, add pictures, add graphics, but don't go overboard either. Keep it simple. The average business plan that I see for a startup, and I'm talking a mom and pop startup. I'm not talking high tech, anything like that. That's a whole different ballgame. This class is on your smaller business, your mom and pop businesses that will probably hit anywhere around $1 million in revenue within their first 3 years. That's the specialty area for this business plan class that we're talking about. Now, one of the things too that's really important is understanding what lenders even are looking for. Okay, so they're looking for proof of experience. They want to know that you are going to be there to make it through the tough times. The tough times when financing gets wonky, when customer situations get crazy. One of the things that's very difficult a lot of times as well is being able to translate your prior experience into this new business. So if you have been working for a company and you've been in the same industry, the same genre, a lot of times those skills are going to transfer. But one question they're going to ask you is, have you successfully managed a small business? And a lot of times the answer is no, I'm a startup, but I do have a lot of management experience. And oh, by the way, look at these 6 classes I've taken on business accounting, on basic bookkeeping, et cetera, and being tied in with a small business counselor in North Carolina, like the small business centers. That's why that's really important. They're going to be looking for those types of things. Now, let's talk a little bit about personal credit. This tends to freak people out. What is a good credit score? How does it work? What are my options? What are my opportunities? Should I be concerned? So here's the deal. I want you always to work to push your credit over 700. That's a traditional lender's happy spot. You want to be over 720. And then the closer you get up into 800, the better you are. When somebody calls me and says, oh, I'm a startup and I've got a credit score of 720 and I've got some cash in the bank and a couple assets, I'm like, ooh, okay, that's really easy. But most people do not have all of that, especially when they're starting. And if you're a young entrepreneur, or a lot of small businesses and individuals have gone through a tough time with COVID, job loss, etc. So here's the beauty of the team. See, the champion lenders, right? The ones that we're going to be talking about, the ones we have been talking about. Their minimum credit threshold is 600. And the reason why is because they know that startups are going to have a harder time. They know that minority-owned businesses sometimes have a harder time finding capital. So their whole process is set up to make sure that you're successful and give you an opportunity to climb into these different levels of lending, right? So some of the things that they're looking for, make sure it's okay if you have a 30-day late, a 60-day, a 90-day. I mean, you want to make sure you protect yourself and try not to let that happen. Put things on auto pay because you don't want that on your credit. It really does affect your credit. But what they're looking for is to make sure that any of your past due bills are paid up before you go into lending arena. that would be a condition for you to get to closing on a small business loan, is they may say, oh, we'd love to give you this $25,000 loan for some of your equipment, but these 3 past due credit card bills need to be paid up so they're in good standing. Okay. Now, the other thing too is that, let's say you're like, oh man, I came to this hoping I'd get some good news. And you know what? My credit score is like 570, 580. 2 things that you can do. Number 1, do not give up on your small business. Do not give up on your goal, and know that you can still get lending. But we're going to have to do some discussion, some justification. We're going to have to prepare that package to explain why. So here's a perfect example. I had a client, legit client, who had a credit score of 760. They had issues going through COVID. They lost customers. I mean, everything shut down. This was a restaurant. You guys, we all know what happened to our restaurants. Bills got late, credit score starts going down. I mean, they're calling me panicking, going, oh my gosh, the world's ending over here. And then they were able to start to get back up on their feet when the doors open again, but their credit took a hit. If we can write a summary of what happened and show a clear line between an impact, hurricane, fire, COVID, impact to that credit score, and then once you're recovering and you're stabilized, ooh, okay, everything's good, and now we're climbing back up. Though these lenders, these champion lenders will accept that, okay? If you have been put in a situation where you're going through a divorce and there was just things outside of your control, they will accept a written statement explaining it. So they're looking for major things that you have either just turned your back on. So all of a sudden you've got student loans and you're like, well, I just don't feel like paying this. Just not going to pay this. Not going to pay my taxes. Not going to pay those. That's a different story. That is something that you need to fix yourself and get your head on straight, because you don't want to ignore those things. And if you're ever in a situation where you have taken out a loan, this is something that's really important, because a lot of times we get scared, like we're taking out loans, right? If you find yourself in a financial pickle, go back to your credit card company, go back to your lender and say, can you do a modification? And here's why. I really need help. That's why I love these lenders. During COVID, it was really important that small businesses could survive. I mean, we were in survival mode. I worked with about 500 small businesses that were 2 to 3 weeks away from feeling like they were going under every 2 to 3 weeks for about 6 months. So it was a crazy time, but we got through it. We got through it because we knew how to go and work on their behalf to talk to their lenders. A modification is essentially when a lender will say, hey, we know you can't pay the $500 a month. Can you do the 100? And then we'll put the rest on the back end. Give you time to breathe, give you time to catch up just a little bit. So I want you to know that that's something that's available. So I'm going to stop here for just a second. I see we've got something on the chat board. Oh, Randy, that's an excellent question. So how far back do you have to explain? So here's what I love about most of these champion lenders. These are your CDFIs and your nonprofit lenders. They're for the most part looking back 3 years. And I know you're probably like, oh gosh, that makes me feel better, right? So except if they are going to ask you if you have a bankruptcy, or if you had any, let's say you had past due child support, or your college loans were in the rears. And so they may see some of those heavier parts of your life, and they will ask about that. But for the most part, in general, they're looking 2 to 3 years, especially in today's environment. What I'm noticing is that when I'm doing a credit review, I'll have a client that might say, you know, I had really good credit, no issues before, you know, COVID, but then my business, you know, took a hit, my barbershop took a hit, whatever it was. It really kind of messed me up, and then I'm climbed back through. I can go back in the credit report and I can see how they looked in 19, all bills were paid. 20, craziness, right? We all went through craziness, personal and business. And then in 2021, they got back on their feet, got stabilized, and then everything is up. So that's typically how a lot of times we're looking at it. But that's an excellent question, Randy. And please keep them coming, because I will spend all day helping you guys navigate on the preparation, because that's really what this class is about. It's not just how to do it, it's why you need to do certain things and why we need to pay attention to certain things on our credit reports, just to make sure. And I hope all of you have credit monitoring. And the reason why that's important is there's so many scammers out there. There's so much junk going on out there. You need to make sure that your credit is protected, locked down. Get one of those notification things. Somebody's pulling your credit, you better know about it. You need to really be protective. There's so much information. I cannot even tell you how many times my daughter, she's 22. She lives in the Charlotte region. I feel like somebody's like getting into her phone every other day is what it feels like. So especially important information, credit cards, all of that good stuff. We have to really, really be due diligent. I even get caught sometimes unknowingly, you know, so, and you know, it's just one of those things that you just have to watch out for. So Joseph, I see for you, I'm currently self-financed with no loans. What would be the best route to build my business credit? Oh, that's an excellent, excellent question. Okay, here's how you are going to be looked at. Joseph, let me remind me how old your business is. How long have you been in business, just so that I have a baseline, because it does affect your finance. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So Joseph shared with us 1 year. So the good news is that lenders are going to take you very seriously. They're going to take you seriously because you've got you're already leaning in, which is great. And you've already put, you know, money on the table, and you're moving forward. The business itself will build a modest level of credit. If you go for an SBA loan, the Small Business Administration, when we go to pull your credit score, it's going to pull a business score and your score. But 100%, you are going to have to guarantee every loan that you sign off on. And you're going to be doing that pretty much until the day that you sell your company. And the reason I say that is because we're talking about smaller businesses. You know, if you spent a lifetime, say you spent the next 20 years building your business, you're still, you know, you may reach up to 5 million in revenues, but pretty much for all loans, for the smaller mom and pop businesses, you're going to have to guarantee all of those. And that's where we have to be careful and really navigating it, because the way that they're going to look at a business, especially a startup, they're going to say, can the business afford itself? Can the business afford the debt? If something happens, something goes wonky, then can the person who owns the business service the debt? So, and I'm just reading your note. Is it better to pay outright? No. See, I love this question, because I get this a lot, and it's like you're reading my mind, and I love it. So here's how lenders think. They're going to say, Joseph, we would love to give you money because you technically don't need money right now, right? Or you kind of need money, you could grow faster. We really want to give you some money now. But if you don't have any cash on hand, that makes a lender nervous. And there's 2 reasons for that, everybody. A lender wants to know you've got a cash cushion. So a perfect world is, Joseph, you would go after a low interest rate startup loan for a small term, and you would have that extra cash cushion right there. You're going to be able to increase, you're going to be able to grow faster. They're excited about that. And you're hiring. Oh, you're hitting all those warm and fuzzies, right? Everybody loves that. Lenders love that, especially in the championship bubble of lenders. Now, if you want to pay everything outright while interest rates are higher right now, that's okay, as long as you continue to have a cash reserve. Here's the other reason why all of you need to become prepared to come to the table with an equity infusion, right? So what are lenders looking for? They're looking for modestly good credit, or that you're up to speed, or that you have an explanation. They're looking for a nice narrative and some financials, which we'll dive into here shortly. And they're looking to see that you are willing to put skin in the game. Skin in the game means cash. So cash is king, right? So on average, CDFIs and nonprofit lenders are going to ask you to come to the table with 10%. So if you need to borrow $10,000, they're going to ask you to bring $1,000 and they're going to give you a loan for $9,000. So that's what they're looking for. Okay. Now, on certain equipment purchases, now I want you to just throw out everything I just said on the 10%, unless or if you are purchasing heavy equipment. You're purchasing a food truck, you're purchasing a rig, you're purchasing heavy equipment, a tractor, anything like that. A lot of times they're going to look more for like 20 to 30%. But if you go to the manufacturers first, so here's what I always tell my food trucks. A lot of times you can get a better interest rate by going direct to the Mercedes dealers, or you can go direct. So like I had a grooming company, a dog grooming company. A lender would have charged her 35%. They would have wanted 35%. Whereas the Mercedes dealership, they were going to give her, she only had to come to the table with 10%, and they had a really good interest rate. So you're going to have to really understand what you're trying to purchase. Here's where it gets tricky, is working capital. So a lot of times, so Joseph, as an example, say you are looking to purchase equipment, and then you want to hire, you need some money for marketing, and you need some small tools. Well, that is the working capital bucket. So working capital is money that you can, it's kind of like a bowl of jelly beans. Like, oh, I need some marketing money. I need some money to hire people. I need to kind of move this around. I need to, you know, purchase my Chamber of Commerce membership. That's your working capital. So if you are going after lending, always bundle your equipment needs or your larger loan needs with your working capital needs. Because one mistake that I see happens a lot. Everybody says, oh, it'll be okay. You know, I can kind of get by on some of the cash I have in savings, and to, you know, to take care of my marketing and all these different things. So I'm just going to go get my loan for my inventory and my large equipment. Well, they go do that, and then something happens. It always happens, my friends. Trust me, there's always something that happens. And next thing you know, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't have the working capital. So then you have to go out and you're borrowing against your higher interest rate credit cards. You're doing all these different things. And you're like, why didn't I just bundle it together? So lesson, bundle them together, because lenders, they want to make sure you have enough money too. We want to make sure you're not under leveraged, because if you do not have enough wiggle room, you're going to start to make quick decisions. You're going to start to panic. A lot of times the money that you need under an emergency is more expensive. So we want you to think long-term. We want you to think out at least that first year. Yeah, absolutely, Randy. So what you need to bundle is, I want you to look at your whole business, and I want you to bundle your equipment purchasing. And if you need equipment, inventory, if you're upfitting a building, so say you're a barber shop and you're like, you know what, I got to order sinks, chairs, etc. Those are called upfits. So you're going to do furniture, fixtures, and equipment, upfits, which is renovations, inventory, and then you're going to make sure you add working capital. Working capital is really cash that the lender is going to be entrusting you with. So that's an excellent question. So as you can imagine, one of the things that's important is we just need to make sure that what we're saying and what we're building is clear and precise and really makes sense. If you give this to a friend of yours, and yeah, no problem, Randy, I got you. If you give your business plan or your summary to a friend of yours and you can't have a conversational discussion about it, That means you're not confident enough in it. Because when you get on the phone with a Roxanne or the business advisors inside the lending house, you can send them your business plan. They're not going to read it until after they talk to you, pretty much. Your small business center counselors, they're going to read it before you go to the meeting with them, because that's what they do. Lenders, we want to hear your voice. We want to hear you explain and talk to us. Now, these Team C, these champion lenders, are not there to get to a no. They're there to get to a yes. They are just like me. They are going to be your champion. They're going to fight for you. They're going to do everything that they can. And if they can't help you immediately, they're going to tell you exactly the resources that you need to do, where you need to go, what you need to fix, and what timeline before they want you to come back into their pipeline. And sometimes that's just the nature of it. But just know that these teams, these startup lenders that I work with all day long, they are fantastic and they are truly your champion. So let's start to talk a little bit about the numbers, okay? They're going to want to see at least 2 years forecasting. Some of you are going to be used to having to put together 3. I say 3 is great if you're in business and you've already started leaning in, so you've got some numbers to work off of. But for the most part, anything over 2 years is like throwing Cinderella dust on it, right? It's like, we don't know what the hell is going to happen half the time here. We're just going to essentially build out year 1. We're going to really zero in. I want you to really laser focus on year 1. Year 2, we can just use a simple growth percentage. And then year 3, we're like, what the heck? We just assume that we're going to possibly grow a little bit more, but we really don't know, right? By year 3, you could have really spiked in sales, or you could be crashing and we have to do some reorganizing anyways. So I want you to really focus in on your first year. And I'm going to actually take you through some worksheets and show you why and what we're looking for, what lenders are looking for, because that's what gets a lot of people in a no. When if they had come to someone like Carmela at the small business centers or me to look at it first, the business advisors inside these houses, they're going to tell you, you submit that, you're going to get a no. But let me tell you how to fix it. So you want to make sure that it's fixed before you go that route, right? So the types of initial financing, this is the life of the startup. This is the life of an existing business too sometimes, who's adding a new project. Like here, we're an agritourism farm. We have 2 Airbnbs. We got a last minute opportunity to purchase another cottage at the farm that's right next to us. And sometimes you have to self-finance and then you can move it into and repackage it under an SBA loan. I want you guys to write down a SBA, Small Business Administration Loan Program that's perfect for startups. It's called SBA 7A Community Advantage. And I'm actually going to put that in the chat board. So a lot of people are scared of SBA, right? And you shouldn't be. I'm an SBA analyst. Trust me, I would package an SBA 7A Community Advantage loan for my own children. Okay, I've got a 25-year-old and a 22-year-old, both in business. So Community Advantage loan. The reason why an SBA 7A Community Advantage loan program is built for startups and businesses in the climb. It's the best friend of the small business. The reason is because you may not have enough collateral, okay? You may not have enough, your home may not have enough equity to be used as collateral, or your equipment. You may buy a brand new piece of equipment. You're like, oh, this is so, oh, well, no, actually, let's talk about your house, because most people understand their homes. So you're like, you know what? I bought my first house. It's worth $200,000. I paid it all off. I'm debt free. This is awesome. So I've got $200,000 worth of equity. Well, technically you do. But you know what a lender does is they says, well, we're going to give you 85% of that. They're going to discount your collateral. You think that your equipment, you might have a John Deere tractor that you just bought a year ago, paid it off. You're so proud of yourself, as you should be. But they're going to give you 60, 70% credit towards that. So when you have a situation where you are not fully collateralized, that's a word you're going to hear a lender say to you a lot. Is the loan fully collateralized? If it is not, that's where they take the SBA 7A Community Advantage warm and fuzzy blanket like a grandma's used to put around us when we were cold and needed some extra comfort. That is a relationship that the government has with these lenders to give them some extra boost to say, if you believe in this client, we believe in this client, let's work as a team, and we're going to guarantee this loan for you. Okay, so don't be scared of SBA. Sometimes SBA can sound like a big scary old alligator out there. Trust me, it's not. It's one of the best and most friendly programs out there. Now, here's another way that you can think of SBA when it comes to some of these term loans is you can start your business. So we've got a number of you that have started their business. We've got Jeremy and Randy and everybody in the crew here. You're starting to lean in. And you may have, there may be a time where you have to take out like a higher interest rate loan just to kind of buy some new equipment. You're like, man, I wish I hadn't bought that under that. Here's what's great about the SBA. You can refinance those things. Anyone who's taken out heavy interest rate for COVID to get your business or your startup through COVID impacts, all of that, SBA will let you refinance. So the thing is you have to be 25 months old to refinance a lot of times. So just, it's all timing. It's all strategy. That's what I'm here today, right? I'm here to teach you all these little tiny things. And for those of you who are like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to remember all of this. Guess what? It's recorded and it's in our digital learning lab. You can find this class within a few days. Okay. So that's why you need to stay close to Carmela, the Small Business Center. And I'm going to make sure that you guys have my direct information. I'm going to put it in the chat right now. Roxanne at granitetraining.com so that you can find me anytime. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about some of these types of financing. Obviously, you've got your personal investment. For those of you who have already personally contributed to your business, do you have a promissory note between you giving the business a loan and that business? So let me rephrase that. If you are a sole proprietorship versus a incorporation, so if you're an LLC, which is the most common, you're an S Corp, C Corp, LLC, most small businesses do the LLC because it's the easiest to work with. So Roxanne Reed has Roxanne Reed's Flower Shop LLC. I'm going to write and give a loan to my business. I'm going to have a promissory note between the two of us. Here's why. That business should be paying back this loan on a monthly basis or at some point. It has to be very clear where this money came from. Because otherwise, when the business, the LLC is like, Roxanne's Flower Shop's like, woohoo, I'm so excited, I can pay you back. Well, if it comes back to me and it's not set as a loan, it looks like income and I have to pay tax on it, right? Plus, we want to make sure that our books are very, very clean. Now, this is not a class on business structuring, but clean books, that's a huge thing with lenders as well. I'm going to move over to the, LLC. Yes. Oh, great, Joseph. Yeah, anytime you are working with humans, I just, a lot of times in classes I get, well, what about this scenario? What about this scenario? Does it touch a human? Could it hurt a human? Is there anything that you're doing that relates to humans? If so, I highly recommend that you become incorporated for your own protection. Okay. And getting incorporated is not difficult. LLC is my personal favorite. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA, but trust me, I have worked with thousands of small businesses and the LLC is my favorite. And I practice what I preach. All of my businesses are LLCs as well. Now let's talk a little bit about gift capital and love money. This is important too, especially when you're preparing your business plan and starting to think about how you're going to kind of chunk these things together. I'm just going to put it this way. There are people in my family and my friends where I could borrow $100 from, would never think twice about it. I have other friends who I would never borrow $5 from because you'd never hear the flipping end of it. Okay. Know who they are and make sure that you make your decisions accordingly. All right. Don't get so desperate that you're willing to take income or money from somebody where you know it's just going to create a problem, because it just creates more problems. Investments from others, a lot of times that's family cash infusions. There may be times when you are going through a lending process, and I know this, can you believe it? It's a business plan class, right? But the business plan is a compilation of all of this. So it's not just writing a, 10-page document. It's the strategy of why am I doing this and how do I do it right? One of the things that's important too, that you always want to make sure when you're working with different investments, or you're working with different family members and you're kind of compiling all of this, you have to make sure that everything just stays very clean and organized. So if you need to figure out a promissory note with family, friends, all these different things, make sure that it's written down and make sure that it's actually signed. You should treat any investments from others just like you would a bank. Okay. So a term loan, personal loan, is essentially money that you are guaranteeing. And welcome to the club, everybody. You are going to be a small business owner. You already are a small business owner, and pretty much you're going to have to guarantee everything, even if your business is incorporated. So anytime that my husband and I would have to go and we would purchase, something for the Airbnb, or we had to get our mobile unit for one of our training teams, we had to personally guarantee that. And those are typically just simple loans. Now, there is lines of credit, but I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off that one right now. Most of your CDFIs and nonprofit lenders, they don't do that. The reason is they don't make money doing that. You got to remember, they're still a bank. They're still a nonprofit lender. So if you are interested in a line of credit and you own your own property, my recommendation is that you look at doing a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. It's some of the cheapest money out there, even in these rates. What's crazy is I recently, probably about a year and a half ago, I always steer my startups to HELOCs if they have some good equity in their home, because it's usually the cheapest, it's the easiest, fastest. And the rates were like 3.2, something like that. I saw one yesterday, it was 7.15, and I know rates are going to start sliding and going down again, but it's a big jump. But here is the difference. Your HELOC may be 7.15, but an average small business, even with the SBA backed loans, they're 9 to 12% right now. And you're probably thinking, Roxanne, what the heck am I getting myself into? Believe it or not, that's actually pretty standard. Even before the interest rate hikes, your SBA loans, your traditional startup, remember, you guys are high risk. Until you're about 2-3 years old, you scare the heck out of everybody, okay? So you have to know your place. You have to understand where you fit into the world of lending. They're taking a risk on you, and you're doing everything you can to make it work. But a lot of people say, but my car was 3%, 4%. It's like, oh, this is a business. This isn't a car. The auto dealership can come up and pick up the car. They can't come pick up how you spent your working capital and your marketing. So you got to think that way. So when you're putting your business plans together, we have to think that way. This is where we talked about the bundling. So Randy, you brought up a really good point. When do I bundle everything together? Your term loan, which is typically your equipment, land, building, furniture, fixtures, things like that, you're going to want to have that and then tie in the working capital loan. So you tie them together under one project, one loan bundle, one use of funds is what they'll typically call that. And last but not least, before we start to go into some of the documents, I always work too to get you guys in and out of here within an hour and a half. So we've got a good 20 minutes. And then I always stay after for questions. So if anyone has anything, please let me know. So before we go into the actual document stack, that is my favorite for a business plan for startups and businesses in the climb, is you have to always remember who you're writing to. Okay. I am a smart person. I've been around the world a little bit. I'm almost 50 years old, so I'm somewhat knowledgeable, but I've been in business lending and business packaging and small lending and small business development for 25 years. There's a lot of times I get business plans and I will tell you what, I don't know what the heck they're saying. I'm like, what is this terminology? what, I don't know anything about running a barber shop. Can you break this down for me? So I want you to always think that, and remember, write it in third grader language. And the reason is because it should be as clear as damn day what you are doing, who your customers are, what you're trying to say, and the points you're trying to get across. Because if it's wobbly wonk and we don't know what you're talking about, we'll just put it aside. We'll eventually get to it, but we're not. A lot of times lenders aren't going to be able to lean into it, because what it does is now they're like, I don't really understand what the heck's going on with this. I don't know this business at all. It's very confusing the way it's written. Is this a new trend? I don't know what's going on over here. Then it triggers, oh, well, let's get on the phone. And then you're still using the same narrative. And the lender's like, I am so confused. Then the lender says, you know what? How about we tie in a small business center, or we tie in one of our local resource partners to help you kind of navigate through this. When you get that from a lender, that means they don't understand what the heck your business plan is even saying. They are confused, and they like you. They like you as a guarantor, so they're willing to give it a shot. But when a lender says to you, let me refer you out to some resource partners who can help you maybe kind of polish your business plan, that's a very nice way of a lender saying your stuff's a little jankety and I need you to go fix it because I can't accept it this way, right? So that's the nice way. Okay. The other way that you may find out that, you know, that you're not a good fit is you just get a hard no. But you should never get a hard no. The reason why people get a hard no is because you just get excited. You're like, oh, I took a class. Roxanne told me if I do this and this and this, I'm going to go and apply. You just start sending in stuff. And you don't even know if they lend to industries like you. Remember, we're peeling back the Oz curtain, right? So remember these CDFIs. We're in Team C. We got this bubble down here. We've got like 4 or 5 different lenders that would possibly be a good fit for you. But you're like, yep, you know what? I heard about this one. My friend, you know, I own a barbershop, but they own a food truck. And I just heard they're great. So I'm just going to apply. Well, let me tell you something. Number one, don't do that, because I got a box of Kleenex for so many people who've done that and have called me, and I've had to go back into the lender and say, oh, sorry. No, we really didn't want to pull that in over here. Or let me reset that client. Let me tell you, let me champion them. We don't mind doing that. That's part of what we do. But we want to go in the right way, right? So you need to also understand that some of these lenders, they don't like barbershops, or they don't like food trucks, or they don't have a funding bucket where they're allowed to deploy funds for certain industries. So that's why the business advisors, the small business centers, and your resource partners are really important to help you navigate which lenders are best for you. If you're here in North Carolina, we got you. If you're outside North Carolina, I can show you the network and a couple resource partners that you can call. And I am more than happy to be there with you, small business centers as well. So you have to think like a lender. I want you to think like a lender. It's no different than those of you who played sports, right? You think like your opponent. What are they going to do? What can I do to counteract, to prepare, to set up a wall? I'm going down the court. I'm, you know, playing basketball. I've got to know what they're expecting of me, or what they think I'm going to do, or what I know they want me to do, or what they need me to do. So you're always in an offense, defense, but mostly offense. And they're in an offense too. Just remember that these lenders are the heart and soul of the small business entrepreneurial community. And I will tell you, before we go into the documents, here are my absolute favorites. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat board. This is North Carolina specific. So we have Thread Capital. Thread Capital is in Raleigh, North Carolina. They are fabulous. They specialize in startups. They do loans up to $50,000 for startups. And then they do existing businesses up to $100,000. They're one of the best for those, if you have a little blip on your credit, and you're not quite sure if you can get traditional lending, they're fabulous. The other one is Carolina Community Impact. Community Impact. Guess what they do? They do SBA, Community Advantage, 7A, 7A Community Advantage, and Carolina Community Impact, CCI, and they are in Raleigh, North Carolina. They are fantastic as well. They will help you as a startup or existing business. If you are already in the climb and you are past 1 year, so I think it's Joseph, we've got you past 1 year in this class, you can look at ICAP. It's the Institute for Capital in Raleigh, North Carolina. So everybody's in Raleigh, right? So the Institute is fantastic. I'm going to typing these out for you guys. All right. Now the Institute, ICAP is what their short terminology is. They are fantastic if you are a seasoned startup, which means you come from the industry. You were a truck driver for a rig in the military, and now you are going to transpose that experience and expertise into getting your own rig and being your own trucking company. That's what they consider an experienced startup. Okay, if you've got going from being in the military and you've never done a food truck ever, and you're like, I am just going to be pulling up grandma's recipes and we're going to rock and roll this, right? That is a pure startup. Your best friend is Thread Capital or CCI. Okay, so, and for those of you who are outside of the state of North Carolina, now that you know the terminology and kind of how to weave your way through the CDFI network, make sure that you can pull up CDFI network in, I'm going to put in parentheses, your state. You pull that up, you are going to get a list from the statewide and then the federal. It's going to list all the CDFIs. Those are the lenders that we're talking about, but they're in your state. So if you're in South Carolina, California, or wherever you are, every state has its own CDFI network and nonprofit lenders. Okay, and that's where you would call their business advisor team. They usually have an intake team that kind of help you out. But again, I don't care where you are. We're here at Farm School on Wheels. That's who I am with, farmschoolonwheels.com, Granite Training Group. We will help you no matter what. And then if you're here in North Carolina, stay very close to your local small business centers, like Carmela and the team, because they're the ones that are going to help you navigate. So on that note, it's 12:03. Let's take a 3-minute break. We're going to switch over to the actual tools. And for you guys to get a copy of these tools, all you have to do is send Carmilla an email, and she'll make sure that you get a copy of the tools that I'm working with. So I'm going to go ahead and pause our recording for just a second. And let's come back at 12:07 Eastern Standard, okay? All right, friends, take your time while we're setting back up here. If somebody could let me know if you can see the Word doc that I have up. Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Randy. Awesome. All right, friends. So let's go ahead and get our groove on here. So Taylor, if you go, I know you're looking for Carmela's email. If you go all the way back to the top of the chat board, I believe she dropped everything in there. If not, let me know, and I will make sure to follow up with you. All right, so you guys have probably been told so many different types of formats for business plans, right? Well, hey, this is going to feel like a Christmas present, because you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. This is all I really needed to dive into as a startup or a business under 2 years old. This legit, not kidding. This is the business plan summary form that I use for all of my startups and for all of my businesses in the climb when you're looking to pivot and you need a little bit more information. And you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, what types of loans do you work on, Roxanne, right? Like, there's no way. I've been told that I have to do this huge, robust, and No, you don't. And here's the good news. I typically work on business loans anywhere from 25,000 to about 150,000. The past 7 years, our team, me as the reviewer, we've put through close to $60 million in the hands of small businesses in the state of North Carolina. So we have seen some business plans and some packages. So I've got you, my friends. And the other information that comes with it is, oh my gosh, it's so simple. It's so easy. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, I love that. You know, the lenders, they're like, oh, we're getting one of Roxanne's packages. It's clean. It's easy to read. It's short and sweet. It's to the point. It's no BS, straight in, right? So you can use this so easily. So this is just the standard business plan question. And I did see the note that Carmela did not put in her email. I will make sure that you guys have all of that information so that you can get access to all of these documents. And these are live working docs. You just have fun with them. And I'm always there to help you as well if you need anything. So you're just going to talk about your business. This is a narrative. I mean, think about, you know, telling me about your business. Think about telling a friend about your business. These nonprofits and CDFIs, they are so kind and so easy to work with. But when we get to the numbers and we start number crunching, that's when everybody goes from, oh, this is a great idea to, let me figure out how, is this really going to work? Like what are the numbers, right? So describe qualifications of your management team. It's the second question for a daggone reason. They want to know that you know what the heck you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, who is on your team that's going to monitor you, help you, support you, groom you, grow you? Then they want you to talk about your customers. Who are your customers? If you don't quite know who your customers are yet, you can say, this is the customer base I'm going to help with. So using our food truck as an example, I'm going to anchor my food truck in downtown Charlotte or Raleigh, North Carolina, and we specialize in breakfast and lunch. So we're going to hit these pockets. Like that's our plan. Those are our customers. Our customers are people who are busy, want good quality, healthy food, but they don't have time to cook it and bring it themselves, right? Well, that tells me a lot as a lender. Remember, talk to me like I'm a flipping third grader when it comes to explanation of what you're doing. So when you really keep it simple, you're like, oh, I got this, right? Describe the customers. We just talked about that. List the firms that potentially could be your primary competitors. So you're going to have your direct competitor. So if you're a pizza shop and you're right next to a pizza shop, that's a direct competitor. If you're a pizza shop next to a hamburger joint, that's an indirect customer. So you want to talk about that. If you're like, you know what, I'm doing something so different, I really don't know a lot about my competitors, talk about your champions. So weave your champions in. So perfect example. If we're talking about the, pizza truck. So we've got a food truck, we're doing pizza and we're hanging out with a bunch of hamburger joints, barbecue joint and all this. And we're doing one of these, we're going to these big events where there's all these food trucks. So we have a lot of competition, indirect competition, but we have competition. So you want to say, unlike the other 7 food trucks that go to this venue every Friday night, I'm the only one that specializes in these, authentic burritos. And our burritos are, made with organic, this and this and this, and they're healthy and they're blah, 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 whatever your specialty is. And what makes us special is that, our champions, that, everybody's always supporting us because not only do we make great food, but we also support great causes. So you might go into some of those things. So you talk about your champions, talk about what makes you different, but you're always going to have competition. And bring it is what I say. A lot of people get scared to talk about the competition. Oh, not me, man. When I launch a new business or a new project, I want to know exactly what I'm up against, because as a strategist, if I know your strengths and your weaknesses, I know where I can support, plug in, maybe be a community partner, be a friend. But those are the things that you need to strategically get a hold of, because you don't want an alligator or scary bear sneaking up behind you. That's not fun. So make sure we know who our competition is. Then we're going to talk about plans for growth or expansion, right? Nothing crazy. But let me tell you something. You go shiny object on me or go squirrel, that's not good. Do not start talking about your dreams 10 years from now and when this business, and then, oh, and oh, by the way, I have this other business concept of mine. No, do not do that. Do not do that. You will scare a lender off so fast. They will just be like, oh, that's great. And you'll start to see them like pivot, like, oh yeah, okay, nice to meet you. Stay focused, stay clear, stay concise. You may have 3 different businesses that you're working all at the same time, but you don't smush them all together, right? And you sure as heck don't present them, especially if they conflict, because you will confuse the bejeebies out of the lenders. And bottom line, they'll think you're not focused on their project that you're asking them to put their money towards. Remember, it's the lender. They're warm and fuzzy, but they got to make sure that you can pay that debt back. Okay. So don't go squirrel. If you think you're going squirrel, that's where you need to talk to the small business center. Carmela is amazing. She will knock you out of squirrel phase. I'll tell you what. And if you're not sure if you're going too far out, just stay within the first 2 years. Do not go any further than 3 years. You will freak out a lender. They do not like to see that unless they are asking it or expecting it of you. So, and then we're going to talk about finance, right? So this little section right here, describe in detail your plan for financing. So this is where you're going to say, you know, I already invested $10,000 in my business to get it started. This is what I did. This is what I'm intending to use the dollars for. Please refer to my business plan. And we kind of grab some of that data and then we drop it in as a narrative, kind of gives them a summary. Year 1, we expect to have revenues of this, expenses of this, net profitability of this. If you do not show net profitability, you don't even need to be building a business plan, right? Because nobody except yourself, and it's fine if you're self-funding, but no lender is going to care. Because if it's not showing that it can sustain itself through net profit, then it's not worth it to them. Because the way that a lender looks at it is you've got revenue, then you've got your cost of goods sold, your variable expenses, then all of your fixed expenses, right? Your hard bills like rent, insurance, all that good stuff. And then, you know, that nice little line under there and it says plus or minus. If it says a minus, you're not going to be ready for lending. And that's okay. Some businesses don't make money right away, but don't bother making yourself crazy or going to a lender. They're not going to do lending to you because it's that net revenue, positive revenue. That's what they're looking for to pay the loan amount per month. So if you don't have that, then you're not lender ready. Technically, you don't need a loan because you can't service a debt. So those are the ways that they think about it. Okay. So let's switch over. Let me check the chat board. Okay, great. Yeah, no problem, Taylor. I'll make sure you guys all have everybody's information. I'm gonna go into a new share. I just need somebody to give me a high five. Whoop, whoop. Okay, let's see. You should be looking at, oh, no, hold on. For some reason it paused. Let me see here. Did this to me the other day. Let me see where it went. Hang on one sec, my friends. There we go. Let me get my break even up. All right, let me move my little thingy here. All right, let me know. Can everybody see? We are looking at Bakery 101 break even. Randy, I got a thumbs up. Is that still viable? Are we good? All right, thank you. Okay, here is one of the most foundational things I want you guys to do first before you do the narrative. So there's 2 parts of a business plan. We're going to go down the financial path. We're going to walk through it for the next 15 minutes, okay? And then the narrative is how you back up. You're writing the narrative supporting your numbers. That's the difference. I have a very different style of business plans. I don't do the narrative until you've done the financials because you're wasting your time, to be totally honest. And I know your time's precious and so is everybody. So we need to make sure that you're stacking it for your success. So break even, okay? I want you guys to get close to the chat board. This is going to be a little interactive because it helps to make sure that you know how this works. Most of you are going to be, when you go for lending, a lender is going to ask you, what is your break even? A lender is going to take your numbers and work it backwards to get to a break even. You're like, what in the heck is that? I don't even know what you're talking about. Okay, so let's talk about that. I'm going to use my chapstick as an example, right? Okay, this is my product. I have to figure out what's variable, what is directly related to the chapstick. So this has a cap on it. If I don't have a chapstick, I don't need a cap, right? So that's a variable expense. This cap is a variable expense. So what we're trying to do at a break even is we have to find out how many chapsticks do I have to make and sell to not only pay for the chapstick, but to pay for all of my fixed expenses, right? And once I know how many I have to sell and how much money has to come out of this product left over and goes into my other bucket, then I'm at break even. When I'm at break even, I'm surviving, which means the company is at baseline. It's not thriving, but it's surviving. It's covering its butt. It's paying its bills. Okay. So how do you get there is what we're going to talk about. So let's use this as one more example so you can kind of mentally get ready for this exercise. I sell my chapstick. I'm selling it for $1, US dollar. Give me a $1 bill. It comes in here. The chapstick eats 50 cents. It cost me 50 cents to make this top to bottom, this whole thing, right? And then guess what pops out the bottom? Another 50 cents. So I got my 50 cents. I'm going to walk it over here into my fixed expense bucket. And I look in there, I'm like, what's in there? Oh, I got my rent bill. I got my loan payment. I got my insurance. And I'm just, every time I'm selling a chapstick, I'm dropping 50 cents in here. Well, eventually I'll have enough money, or should have enough money, that's the goal, to pay all the bills in this fixed expense bucket. Once all the bills are paid, I don't have a penny more or a penny less. I'm at break even. The reason why it's so important as a startup when you're running your numbers is because they want to know, can this business do this? And how much sales do you have to accomplish it? Because that's going to come down to another question of your business plan. So let's get started. I want you to open up your chat board, right? I want you guys to help me identify what you think is variable or fixed as we go down this list. So here's our sample. We're doing a bundt cake. And every bundt cake we sell is $200. All right. So we've got to figure out how many bundt cakes we have to sell to break even, to survive. Okay. You just put V or F in the chat box. What do you guys think? Would our rent be variable or fixed? All right. You got it. Fixed. What about our loan payment, including our startup loan payment? What do you guys think about that? All right, we got fixed. Y'all are on it. All right, we're giving somebody a commission, $10 every time they sell one of our bundt cakes. What do you think about that? There we go, variable. What about insurance? Insurance, what do you guys think about insurance? Oh, I got a G. Oh, we got a V. Oh, we got a good mix here. All right, here's how I want you to think about it. Insurance can adjust, right? But we're looking at a baseline. I want you to think about a year. So I want you to think about 12 months. I want you to take your total insurance and I want you to divide it out by 12, because no matter what, because remember, I scared you to death. You got to have insurance, right? We need to make sure we're safe along with our LLC. So we're going to set that in our break even as a fixed expense. So you're both right. But when it comes to a break even, I want you to lay it in as a fixed expense because it's a must have. All right, what do you guys think about for materials for baking? $90 per sale. So that's, almost. All right, we got fixed, we got fixed, we got variable. All right, so the variables are going to win on this. And the reason is because remember when we talked about the chapstick, it has a cost of its own. So when we are doing our baking materials, we know for every bundt cake, $90 of materials it takes to make that cake. So when you see in a line item per sale, that's your clue. So that's why I love doing this exercise, because this is the most foundational thing. If you learn nothing else today, this is the most important foundation for building a rock star business plan and financials. Okay. All right. Salary. What do you guys think? Now this is for your break even, right? We're setting goals, we're setting benchmarks, variable or fixed. I got a fixed in there. When I got a variable, I get both. So here's the reality. As entrepreneurs, we know we're going to take it in the shorts, right? We're usually paid last, but we're setting a goal. We're setting a goal in our break even to set a benchmark so we can say, hey, lender, this is what we need to do to cover everything, including us and our key people. So you always want to put yourself and your key critical employees in your break even, because if you're out there slaying dragons and selling these bunk cakes, but you're not in there, you really can't celebrate because you're not getting paid, right? So we want to put you in as a fixed expense. Lenders are going to look for that. That's a key. They want to see that you are built in. What do y'all think about utilities? Fixed or variable? Yeah, we got fixed in there. There you go. Yeah, same things, just like insurance, right? That's what we're going to want to do. So now, step one is identify fixed versus variable of all of your expenses, and do not lie to yourself about your expenses. And I say that because I did that many moons ago, and it totally screwed me up. I was losing. It was like money was just flowing out the door because I was too busy. I didn't want the numbers to tell me I couldn't do my dream, which numbers are never going to tell you can't do your dream. They're going to tell you how to get to fulfill that dream. Okay. So I want you to not be scared of your numbers. And if you're ever scared, you call me or you call Carmela and we got you. Trust me, we will push you through that fear. And you'll be so excited to see what your numbers look like. Okay. So then we've got to start with we've got to figure out how much money is left over. So we separate fixed and variable. Next step, step two, is we've got to figure out how much money is left over to pay our fixed expenses, right? So we're going to take our sales price of 200 and we're going to go up to our variable costs, which is our wages and our $90 per sale. And that's going to be 100. Okay. And so what do we have left over? We have $100. All right, we got $100. We go sell a bun cake. We got one Benjamin. We can put in our bucket. Remember our bucket with all of our fixed expenses? So now comes the scary part. Oh boy, how many bun cakes do we have to sell, right? This is where we're like, oh, please don't kill my dream. Please, numbers, don't kill my dream. It's not going to kill your dream, I promise you, because there's always ways to skin a cat, you know, three ways sideways. We got this. So you're going to go up and you're going to add all of your fixed expenses. So now we've got to determine the total fixed expenses for the month. So if you add those up, it's $5,800. Okay. The contribution margin from above is $100. Do not grab the sales price. That is not yours. You don't get to claim all of that. You only get $100 of that. Okay. This is where I see the first mistake in this formula. First mistake is where we want to line things up. Second mistake is where we grab the wrong number. You only get to keep what's left over for the final review of the break even. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 5,800 and we're going to divide it by the 100. And bingo, bango, it tells us we only need to sell 58 bun cakes. Now the lender is going to say, oh, these numbers your numbers are clean, very organized. And then they're going to ask, well, tell me about 58. Is that a good number? What's the average baker doing in your town? Are they selling? What are they doing? Here's what you want to be able to say. Well, you know, the average baker in our area on average is selling around 85 to 90 bun cakes per month. And they're a couple years older than us. They've got definitely more of a reputation. We're really hoping to kind of leverage some of our reputation as well, because we've got some new techniques in bun cakes. And so 58 doesn't scare us. If you find out through your research that the average bun cake bakery is only selling 30, now what are you going to do? And this isn't where I start to have a fit and crying and get everybody getting all upset. It's like, well, my dream, what do you mean? You're saying I can't do my cakes? Like my dream is over. No, that's not what we're saying. You've got two options. Number one, we need to go and cross-check the numbers, right? We need to make sure that the numbers are accurate. Do not lie to yourself to squeeze your numbers to make your dream look like it's going to happen on paper. Don't do that. Trust me. Trust me. Lauren got about 6 t-shirts from that about 20 years ago. So what you're going to do is first off, we're going to go cross-check your numbers. Then we're going to make sure that you are at a good sales price. But the next thing is, guess what? We can diversify. All right. We got this. Yes. You know, this ain't my first rodeo. I will get you guys through everything you need. I'm going to switch over. We're going to switch over here. I'm going to spend another 5 minutes going through these 2 worksheets because I want you to see them. Let me make sure I got them up here. And matrix. And let me see if I need to screen share, new share. All right. I need a thumbs up. Tammy, Tennille, Taylor, anybody out there? Let me know if you're looking called nothing. So, yes. All right. Awesome, Taylor. Thank you. And oh my gosh. I'm sorry, Tennille, if I'm saying your name wrong. It's such a beautiful name. I love the way that it's written. But yes, you're right. They only sell bundt cakes and they are fabulous. All right, my friends. Oh, good. Thank you. I'm so glad I was pronouncing that correctly. So now we are on to our diversification plan, okay? And let me remind you, you haven't written a daggone thing down, right, on your narrative. I don't want you to do any of that hard writing until we get you through this. This is why my business plan class is a little different than what most are used to, because I'm going to take you into what's important. The numbers are the most important. That's what lenders care about. That's what you should care about. So we just did our Word doc version, right? Now we're on an Excel spreadsheet and you get copies of all of this. So you guys will love this, and everything's pretty much populated. So you can kind of do a cut and paste. Here's our sales price, right? Now you're seeing our gross profit margin. There's our 5,800. Let's go over into 3 products. Well, what's different about this spreadsheet? You're like, well, now we've got a wedding cake. Now we got a bundt cake, and now we got cupcakes. But what's really different about this spreadsheet? Let me show you. Sales mix, right? Sales mix. So we originally had 100% of everything on bundt cakes. And oh boy, what if something goes wrong? What if, you know, we were thinking we're only going to be able to sell our $200 bundt cakes, but oh gosh, we need some diversification. So just like the bundt cake example that we were all talking about on the chat board, they have big ones, they have little ones, they have little cupcake versions, they have all kinds of cute stuff. So you have to diversify, but you can change your sales mix. Okay. So let's say, you know what, we're going to diversify a little bit. We're going to, you know, we built our reputation on wedding cakes and cupcakes. And then maybe we'll kind of, you know, break in our, you know, bundt cakes, because we're getting a little nervous on how do we do this, you know, and this is where we could change it. I always like to show you guys where you can make some changes. Just don't change any of the formulas, you know, and if you do, save the original, go back, you know the deal. Okay, so let's see what life would look like if we diversify a little bit, because, you know, you might be like, well, you just destroyed my bundt cake dream and now I'm upset and I can't do 58. And now what do I do? Well, here's the next step on how you strategically maneuver around this before you fully build the business plan. So, oh, look at this. All right, we got our 5,800. We're still getting paid. We're still getting paid. That's important. Now look at what we have to do, friends. Wedding cakes, we have to sell 16. We might be like, slam dunk. You know, I do 20 wedding cakes on average out of my kitchen. No problem. Bundt cakes, we only have to do 21. The average shop's doing 38. We're feeling better now, right? And we only have to sell 16 packs of cupcakes or 16 cupcakes. Heck, you could sell a cupcake for $5 these days, no problem. So we only have to sell 16 cupcakes. I'm sorry, friends, but if you're going into business and you can't pull this off, then I'm even more worried, okay? But look at what a difference in the numbers. You're going to share this with a lender. They're going to be like, oh, this is great. And then you can say, you know what, but during high wedding season, we might be 50% cakes. We might be 10% butt cakes, and we're going to do 40% cupcakes because this is what the wedding season cares about. You can adjust your sales mix. You don't have to have the same sales mix for the entire year if you're in an industry with flux, okay? And then it still doesn't look crazy. You got to sell 23 wedding cakes, no big deal. 5 bun cakes, super easy. And cupcakes, 19. Again, you should be feeling more in control, more relaxed. Now that you've run your numbers, if this was correct, how many of you are feeling better now going, okay, this makes sense to me? Give me a high five. Tell me if this makes sense on the process I want you guys to use so that you know what you're up against. Okay, great. Because it's numbers. And then we layer the story around. It's so easy to write our narrative, my friend. So easy, right? For the most part, it's pretty easy. This is what gets everyone scared. All right, we've got one last document. You're probably like, oh my gosh, Roxanne, you're killing me today. All right, let me go find my spreadsheet. I'm going to show you the guys this very quickly and let me know when we are here. All right, everybody can give me a thumbs up. I just want to show you this cash flow worksheet real quick. Let me know we're good. Awesome. Thank you, Randy. Okay, so this is where you're going to take those yummy numbers and we're going to transpose it onto a cash flow worksheet. Okay, so you're going to put the sales. You can do combined. I have very advanced worksheets that we can also use, but this is the most simple. If you have one major product. Oh, and speaking of which, I want you to focus on 3 of your best products and services as a startup or a business under 3 years old. Don't go out here in these little outliers. Nobody cares about that. They're going to lop them off in their data crunch anyways. That's what I do. I'm like, I want to know what your top 3 are. Tell me what your top 3 are. You're going to put your sales in here. Your cost of goods sold, those are your variable expenses, right? And then you're going to have all of your expenses in here. So if you come to a meeting with Carmela or myself, I do all virtual. Carmela is hybrid, but she's in your area. And we actually I run your numbers live. But what I would ask of you when you go to a meeting with a business counselor, make sure you have at least 1 month of estimated. What do you think your revenues may look like? What are your top 3 products and services? What are those expenses for each? Remember the chapstick? What does it cost to make that product or service? And this, a lot of times, if you're strictly in the service industry, so say you're billing by hour, that's even easier, but it's a lot of times harder when you're first starting to run your numbers because you're like, I don't really know how to account for that, bill for that. Do you just write down what your amount is that you're taking in per hour? And then we're going to pick apart at all of the expenses and we can help you formulate that spreadsheet. And like Carmela said, this is a series. This is a 5-week program. You don't have to come to every class to understand these steps and to be a part of this process. You always have access to Carmela and myself, and she can refer you out to me for high numbers crunching. If you can't tell, love it. So this is the last sheet. So when you go to build your business plan, you're going to have your cash flow projections and your simple narrative. And then what else are you going to attach? What did I say? I want you to tell me at least one thing on the chat board. What else are you going to attach to your business plan that I said is very important? We've got the narrative, the financials, which is this right here. What else? See if anyone can remember. If not, I'll give you some little tips, some little teasers. Resume, right? I want you to attach a resume. What else? There's one other thing that's really awesome if you could put it out there. Anybody have an idea? We got narrative, projections, resume, showcasing, okay? If you have been promoted on any other news, Facebook, any of that, you want to put that in there because these lenders like to see how you're engaging with the community. So On that note, I'm going back to my slideshow. And we are going to end our class right here. So, any other questions? Any questions? I am going to go get Carmela's phone number and information right now. Let me go get that. I'm here on the chat board if you guys need me. Oh, you're also going to get an email with a survey to talk about how wonderful I am and how much fun you had today, and if you're brain fried or not in a good way. So please, if you see that, we always appreciate that. That's really important for the state of North Carolina. Let me go and get Carmela's information from you guys. And I want to tell you guys, it has been an absolute blast to be with you. I'm so excited to be able to teach for you today. And I'm going to make sure, let me actually grab her information. Give me just 1 second. Actually, let me go ahead and stop the recording while I'm thinking about it. And if anybody has any questions, we've got you.